So what happens when a community feels like it's being completely ignored by the media and that its own government isn't keeping it safe? Today, we're going to break down commentator Ami Horowitz's recent segment on Sky News Australia. He lays out a pretty intense argument that connects these local frustrations to what he describes as a major global threat. Let's get into it.
You know, the whole conversation really kicks off with this incredibly powerful and emotional question: will you listen to us? According to Horowitz, this isn't just a random question. It's aimed directly at Australian leaders and media organizations. And right away, it sets the stage for this deep sense of frustration that he says is running through the Jewish community.
So, where is all this frustration coming from? Well, according to the source material, it's really rooted in how the community feels its story is being told, or maybe more accurately, how it's not being told truthfully by some major news outlets.
And he gets specific. Horowitz points the finger directly at three huge outlets: the ABC in Australia, the New York Times, and the BBC. The claim he's making is that their reporting has been biased and that this has created a massive misunderstanding of what's really going on, especially for the Jewish community in Australia.
But here's the thing. Despite that passionate plea for the media to listen and maybe change course, the commentary takes a really pessimistic turn. The speaker basically says the answer is no. He expresses this firm belief that these institutions are just set in their ways and that really nothing's going to change.
In this feeling, this lack of faith, it doesn't just stop with the media. According to Horowitz, it extends all the way to other institutions, including the government, and that leads him to a pretty stark conclusion. If you feel like you can't rely on the media for the truth or the government for your safety, well, the only option you've got left is to rely on yourselves. So, this is the crucial point right here. The commentary is advocating for a big shift away from depending on official protection. It's a call for the community to take its security into its own hands, and it's born from this conviction that the government either won't or simply can't step in effectively.
Okay, so this naturally leads to a really important question, and it pretty much sets up the entire rest of the argument. If self-reliance is so necessary, what exactly is the threat that's making it so urgent?
And this is where Horowitz makes his central claim. He says, look, this isn't some vague, abstract threat. He focuses on one specific organization, the Muslim Brotherhood, and he positions them as a key player in what he describes as a much, much larger global conflict.
The argument here is that what we're seeing aren't just a bunch of separate, isolated incidents happening in different places. Instead, it's presented as one single, interconnected global challenge. The idea is that these different groups aren't just operating in a vacuum. They're all part of a unified ideological movement.
Now, to back up this huge claim of a coordinated global threat, the speaker points to his own investigative work. He talks about spending a month undercover with the Muslim Brotherhood across all these different places, from Lebanon and Egypt to Germany and even the US, to show just how far the organization's reach really goes.
All right, so if the problem is a global interconnected organization, like he says, what's the solution? The commentary doesn't just stop at identifying a problem, it pushes for a very specific and pretty controversial policy action.
The heart of the solution is this: officially label the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization. And the way he sees it, this isn't just a symbolic move. He argues that it would actually give law enforcement brand new legal authority, new tools to go after the group's activities.
Now, the commentary gets ahead of a pretty common counter-argument, right? Which is, how can a religious group be a terrorist organization? The point made here is that an organization's religious identity shouldn't give it a free pass. In this view, the two things, religious and terrorist, are not mutually exclusive. An organization can be both.
To make this point crystal clear, the speaker holds up the example of Hamas. The argument is that Hamas perfectly illustrates how a single group can wear multiple hats at once. It functions as a religious group, it's a governing body, and it's a major terror organization. This is presented as a precedent for how to view the Muslim Brotherhood.
And from that really specific policy proposal, the commentary kind of zooms out, placing this whole issue into a much wider historical context of struggle, resilience, and healing.
And this is where things get really interesting, because it touches on this powerful double-edged sword. The ability to forget trauma is absolutely essential for us to heal and move on. But the speaker argues that very same ability creates a weakness, because forgetting the lessons of the past can leave a community completely unprepared for the future.
And this timeline here lays out that cycle perfectly. It's presented as this constant loop. Persecution happens, it's followed by a period of healing, and that healing is helped by forgetting. But And this is the key part of the argument. That act of forgetting can lower a community's guard, making it vulnerable all over again when new threats appear.
So what's the final takeaway here? The source material kind of wraps up with this idea of solemn resilience. The events being talked about are framed not as some shocking new thing, but as just the latest chapter in a long, repeating history of persecution and survival that the Jewish people have faced for centuries.
And that leaves us with the final and, frankly, very challenging question that this analysis puts on the table. If we accept the idea that history is repeating itself, then what are the lessons that can finally be learned to break that cycle once and for all?